Imagine waking up one day and discovering that your town is going to cease to exist, not because of a natural disaster or a direct war, but by decision of the government itself. This was the reality of the small village of Billmuthausen, located in former East Germany, very close to the border with West Germany during the Cold War. At that time, Germany was divided into two countries: West Germany, with a capitalist system, and East Germany, under Soviet influence with a strict socialist regime. This division was part of a larger context known as the Iron Curtain, which separated Eastern and Western Europe. Billmuthausen was located in a highly sensitive area, within the so-called border zone of East Germany. This region was heavily controlled by the state, with fences, watchtowers, armed patrols, and even restricted zones where civilians were not allowed. The main goal was to prevent people from escaping to the West, something that had happened frequently in the early years after Germany's division. Over time, the East German government adopted even stricter measures to reinforce border security. One of these measures was known as Action Ungeziefer, Operation Vermin, carried out in the 1950s, which had already forced thousands of people considered politically unreliable to leave border regions. Even years later, the fear of escapes remained. In 1978, authorities decided that Billmuthausen posed a risk because it was too close to the border. The solution was extreme. Residents were forced to leave their homes. Many received sudden orders and had very little time to organize their lives. Entire families were relocated to other parts of East Germany, often without the freedom to choose where to go. After the evacuation was complete, the government began destroying the village. Houses were demolished. The church was torn down. Buildings disappeared. The streets ceased to exist. The goal was clear: to prevent any possibility of return and to completely erase that place from the map. For years, the area remained empty, integrated into the border security system. It became part of what was known as the Death Strip, a heavily guarded zone that included electrified fences, surveillance systems, and strict orders to stop anyone attempting to escape. It was as if Billmuthausen had been erased not only physically, but also from official memory. This reality only began to change in 1989 with the fall of the Berlin Wall, one of the most important events of the 20th century. This marked the beginning of German reunification and the end of restrictions that had separated East and West for decades. With the borders reopened, former residents and their descendants were finally able to return to the place where the village once stood. What they found was an empty space, with no trace of the homes they once knew, but filled with memories. Even so, they chose to preserve the history of Billmuthausen. Over time, memorials were created at the site. A church was symbolically rebuilt, not exactly as it was before, but as a monument to remembrance. Informational plaques were installed to tell the story of the village and what happened there. In addition, annual gatherings began to take place, bringing together former residents, families, and visitors interested in keeping the memory of the place alive. Today, Billmuthausen no longer exists as an inhabited town, but it remains as a symbol of a period marked by division, control, and loss. A town that was physically destroyed, but continues to live on in the memory of those who refuse to let it disappear completely.